Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to start Sefer Vayoel Moshe, Maamar Shevuos, Siman Aleph. And in the first paragraph, the Rebbe is going to give he's going to bring down the Gemara in Ksubas. That's the sugya of the Shevuos, and the two shittas, Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Zera holds that the Shevuos after the Rabbim, that's the general Jewish people from going up to Eretz Yisrael, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that it asks even a Yachid, even a single Jew, is not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael. And Rabbi Zera holds a single Jew is allowed to go, just the general Jewish people are not allowed to go altogether. So let's see it inside. B'Gemara Ksubas Daf Kuf Yud, Rabbi Zera Hava Komishtamit Minei Rabbi Yehuda. The Boil Amesak LeEretz Yisrael. Rabbi Zera was avoiding meeting his Rabbi Yehuda because he wanted to go up to Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Zera lived in Bavel, and Rabbi Yehuda lived in Bavel, and they learned together there. He was his Rabbi, but he didn't want to live in Bavel anymore. He wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael to learn in the yeshivas there, and his Rabbi held that was forbidden to do, so he didn't want to meet up with him because he didn't want to have to tell him where he's going and get a whole speech from him. The Amar Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda said, Kol ha'olam mibavel le'eretz Yisrael, anybody who travels, who moves from Bavel to Eretz Yisrael, oiver ba'aseh, he transgresses a positive commandment, shenemar bavela yuvahu v'shama yiyu, ad yoim pakti oisam ne'um Hashem. There's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, it says, they will be sent into Bavel, and they will be brought to Bavel, they will stay there until the day that I revisit them, said Hashem. Reb Zera. Now obviously that's not a mitzvah saseh from the Torah, it's a pasuk in Navi, but it's still called an aseh in the Lashon HaGemara. Reb Zera, what does Reb Zera do with that pasuk? Hahu b'klei shares ksiv. That pasuk is talking about the kalim of the Beis Hamikdash that were brought into Galus. That's what the pasuk is. The whole context of that section of the psukim is talking about. That the kalim will be brought to Bavel, and there they will be until the second Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt. Rabbi Yehuda. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with that raya? L'choira, it's obvious from the context that it is talking about the kalim of the Beis Hamikdash. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Ksiv kroach rina. There's another pasuk. Hishpati eschem b'nois Yerushalayim b'tzvois oy ba'aylos hasada. The pasuk in Shir Shirim, Pitel Beis, pasuk Zion, it says, Hashem made the Jewish people swear, I have made you swear, the daughters of Jerusalem. And the daughters of Jerusalem, in this context, means the Yidden, the Jews. Now it's interesting, this is the first page in our Maamar pages, that throughout Shir Shirim, usually the B'nois Yerushalayim means the Goyim of the world. When it says Hishbati Eschem B'nois Yerushalayim, usually it means when the pasuk of Shir Shirim talks about the B'nois Yerushalayim, it means the other nations. And the Jewish people is considered like Hashem's Kala, and she's talking to the other nations. And that's exactly how Rashi explains it. If you look in Shir Shirim, Rashi, on the first page of the Maamar, the pasuk is pasuk Zion there. I highlighted it, and at the bottom, I highlighted the Rashi, Hishbati Eschem Atem Ha'umais, that the Yidden say to the Goyim, you nations of the world, I have made you swear, by the gazelles or by the deer, Shetiyu hefker meichel kitzvim v'ayolim, that if you don't keep this oath, you're going to be hefker like the gazelles and the deer. And what's the oath that the Jewish people made the Goyim swear? Im to'iru v'im to'iru eso'ava shebeini v'doidi, that you can't be mo'oyer, like you can't dispute the love that's between me and my doid, my beloved Hashem, l'shanoisa lahachlifa, to change it and to exchange it, to kind of like say Hashem should choose somebody else, ulevakesh mimeni liispatos achreichem, or to try to get me to leave Hashem and to go after you. Ad shetechpatz b'chol oid shehi tekua b'libi. As long as I have that love in my heart, don't try to get me out of it. So Rashi's not learning like the Gemara. The Gemara is saying the pshat in the pasuk is Hishbati Eschem, I made you swear, the Hashem said to the Jewish people, I make you swear, right? And Rashi saying it's the Jewish people saying to the Goyim, I make you swear not to try to convince me to go after you. And then, so to explain why Rashi didn't follow the Gemara, look at the end of Rashi that I highlighted here. Rashi says, Yesh midrashei agada rabim ve'enam misyashvim al seder hadvarim. There's a lot of midrashei agada, which means our Gemara and the Medrash Rabbah on Shiur Shirim that bring down the Shalosh Shevuos, but they don't fit into the seder hadvarim in Shiur Shirim. Ki roya ani shenisnabe shloimoi. That I see that if you read through Shiur Shirim from the beginning, you see that Shlomo Melech, who wrote Shiur Shirim, is talking about the chronological order of Jewish history. The Dibra al Yetzias Mitzrayim. First he speaks about Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Matan Torah, the Mishkan, Ubias Haaretz, Ubeis Abechira, the Galus Bavel, Ubias Bayasheni, the Churbanai. He goes in order through the coming into Eretz Yisrael, the Beis Hamikdash, the second Beis Hamikdash. And so, at this point in the Shiur Shirim, it's not up to that yet. It's not up to the Galus yet. So Rashi didn't want to learn that the Shalosh Shevuos here is going on the Galus, like the Gemara learns, because that would be out of order. Rashi is Mefarish Pshuta Shel Mikra. Yeah. So we have to understand there's a difference between Pshat and Halacha. Halacha doesn't always have to go with the way the Pshat learns the pasuk. The Pshat of Rashi and Chumash everywhere doesn't always learn psukim according to the way that Chazal learned them. And Chazal derive halachas from the halachas are really halachas. They're given me Sinai. But still, there's such a thing as Pshuta Shel Mikra that could be different from the halacha. Okay, Al Kapanim, but the Gemara is learning the Shalosh Shevuos is going on the Hashem being Mashpia Yisrael. And the Gemara continues here, as Vayoel Moshe brings it down. V'Reb Zera, Hahu shelo yalu Yisrael b'chayma. He says, what do I do? What does Reb Zera do with that pasuk of Hishbati Eschem? He learns it for that the Yidden shouldn't go up, the Jewish people altogether shouldn't go up as a wall, or in a wall. V'Rav Yehuda, so what does Rav Yehuda do with that limud? Doesn't he have to also learn the Shalosh Shevuos on the whole Jewish people? The answer is Hishbati Achrina Ksiv. There are two psukim Hishbati. There's actually three. Shiur Shirim has three psukim Hishbati Eschem Nois Yerushalayim. So Reb Zera, Hahu Miboyle, Reb Zera, what does he need the second pasuk Hishbati for? Miboyle lechad Reb Yosi Bar Chanina. He learns it for Reb Yosi Bar Chanina's din. The Amar Shalosh Shevuos Halal Lama. These three psukim in Shiur Shirim, what are they for? Achas Shlo Yalu Yisrael b'chayma. The first one is that the Yidden shouldn't go up together as a wall. The second one is that the Hashem was mashpia the Yidden not to rebel against the nations of the world. The Hashem was mashpia the Goyim that they shouldn't afflict and oppress the Jews too much. Okay, so that's the three psukim. So Rabbi Zeir takes care of all the psukim. So Rabbi Yehuda is stuck now. He has to explain where he gets his din from because he has these three psukim. So Rabbi Yehuda, what does he do? Im ta'iru v'im ta'iru ksiv. That by all the Shevuos, it says two times. It says im ta'iru v'im ta'iru. If you awaken and if you arouse, eso'av ajatechplatz. The love of the geula before the time. So there's two words. So we can make 6 drashes out of this. So one of those 6 drashes will go for Rabbi Yehuda's din that you can't, even a single person can't go to Eretz Yisrael. For Reb Zeira, what does Reb Zeira do with those 6 psukim? Miboy lei lechad Rabbi Levi. He needs it for Rabbi Levi's din. The Amar Sheish Shevuos Halal Ulama. Rabbi Levi said, what are these 6 oaths? Tlasa Hani Di Amar. And the 3 are the 3 that we just spoke about. Not going up as a wall, not rebelling, and not the nations afflicting us too much. Enoch, what are the other 3? Shelo Yigalu Es HaKetz, that the Jews shouldn't reveal the end of the Galus, that when they, let's say a Yid would know through calculations when the end of the Galus is coming, he can't be megal it, he can't say it out to people. The Shelo Yidchaku Es HaKetz, that Jews shouldn't push for the end, they shouldn't try to redeem themselves before the time. The Shelo Yigalu Hasoid L'Umos Olam. They shouldn't reveal the secret to the nations of the world. Now, what's the secret? So, if you look in Rashi on the Gemara, photocopy of the Gemara here on pages 2 and 3, Rashi says that the secret is, it's the 3rd line in Rashi, Shelo Yigalu is Hasoid. Amri La, some say Soid Ho Ibur. It's the secret of how to calculate the an Ibriyor, a leap year, how to calculate when the solar year and the lunar year, how lunar and solar years fit together. And the Amrilon, others say Soid Tame HaTorah. The reasons for the Torah, that you shouldn't be Megal, the reasons for the Torah to the nations of the world. Okay, so back to Vayoel Moshe. So the Gemara continues and says, what's this? The oath was made with the gazelles and the deer of the field. Rabbi Lazar, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to the Jewish people, if you fulfill the oath, you keep the oath, then good. If not, I'm going to make hefker your flesh like the deer and the gazelles. Ad kan lashon Gemara. Okay, so now the Rebbe begins with his questions that he's going to ask on this Gemara, and he says. And I'm just going to say, just outside what the paragraph is going to say, he says, first of all, that Rabbi Yehuda started out saying that if you go up to Eretz Yisrael, you're over on a mitzvah saseh. And then he changes to a shvuah. Well, then he should have said that to begin with. Why did he say you're over on an aseh? His real memra was, Kol ha'olam mibav Eretz Yisrael over b'aseh, right? And then, because Rabbi Zeir had said that's talking about the kalim, so he changed it. Okay, I'm learning it from the shvuah. From Mishpati Eschem. Well, if you learned it from Mishpati Eschem, then why didn't you say so? Why did you say Oivra Basei? That's going to be his first kasha. And he brings that the Rif in Ein Yaakov, Rabbi Yirmiyahu Pinto, who was from Morocco a few hundred years ago, he asked this kasha already, and he's going to say a teretz, and the Rebbe is not going to be satisfied with the teretz. You're going to see. Okay, let's see it inside. Kasha Tuva Bahach Memra. It's very difficult to understand this shtickle Gemara. Shehischil b'di Rabbi Yehuda loymar oiver b'aseh. Starts out with Rabbi Yehuda saying that you're oiver b'aseh. You transgress a positive commandment. Shenemar bavela yuvahu. They'll be brought to Bavel. V'achar kach omar kroach rina. But then he says a different pasuk. Siv hishbati eschem. I made you swear. V'im kein avalela memer oiver al ashvua. So then why didn't Rabbi Yehuda say to begin with that you're oiver on the shvua? Okay, Rif be'ein Yaakov, the Rif, Rabbi Yoshiyahu Pinto, Kostav l'taritz demehach krod ishbati shmuin degam hach krod bavel yuvo kol al goyim. That from the second pasuk, you learn that the first pasuk is also talking about the people. If you didn't have the second pasuk, you would say, like from the context, in Sefer Yirmiyahu, that it's talking about the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash, right? But now that you have the second pasuk ishbati, that shows that the first pasuk is talking about the people. Not on the Kalim. Yuri and Sham, take a look over there in the Rif. Masha Kostav Lahazbir Bazeh. What he explains. Now, Uke'ein Zeh, Kostav Gam Mefarshim Lacherim, Oifanim Shoinim. Other Mefarshim also say this pshat, Lahazbir de Mikradi Ishbati Shmoinen Al Kradi Bavel Yuvo. From the pasuk of Ishbati, we learn that that's what the pasuk of Bavel Yuvo is talking about. Okay, so the Rebbe says, Vizeru Yishuv Ktsas, Lamad Nokat Oiver Basei, the Bavela Yuvo. Now this explains why Rabbi Yehuda originally said Bavela Yuvo, you're over on an aseh. Even though the Gemara comes out that really we're learning from Hishpati, from the Shua. Okay, but this doesn't answer the question fully. Since in the end, it is true that you're over on the Shua, as well as the aseh. So, Imkain, Rabbi Yehuda still should have said that someone who goes up to Eretz Yisrael is over on the Shvuah, because it's important to know that. If you just tell people that you're over on an aseh, I would have thought it's just an aseh. There's different types of averos. Some averos are more severe than others. And he says, Kivan devadai Shvuah chamura mishar aseh. A Shvuah is much more strict, much more severe than a regular mitzvah aseh. Why did Rabbi Yehuda just say the aseh, which is the more light prohibition, and not the shvuah? Another kasha on the Rif. We find that this memra of Rabbi Yehuda, that kol ha'olam bavel eretz Yisrael aseh, is brought in two other places in Shas. Bebrachas daf chav daled, u'b'Shabbos daf mem aleph. V'sham lo hiskir klal limud hishpati. There it just says plain, everybody say, it never says anything about hishpati. Elo everybody say v'su lo midi. V'oid yeshnon harba kushos u'tmiyos be'inyan zeh v'ein laharich. The Rabbi says I have much more questions here, but I'm not going to speak them out now. I'm going to answer them all up later when he explains the whole Indian of the Shalosh Shevuos. Now this is going to take the Rebbe a long time, so everyone has to be patient. Until Siman Ayin tests, he doesn't answer this kasha. So we'll have to keep it in mind. Okay, so the next paragraph here is going to be about a different question that the Rebbe has. Basically, the kasha is that Rabbi Yehuda says that you're not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael b'zman hazeh, right? Nobody, even a single Jew, is not allowed to go. We don't paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, but L'maisa Rabbi Yehuda holds it away. So every Amoira, can't argue on the Mishnah, and the Mishnah says there in Ksubas that a husband and a wife could force each other to move to Eretz Yisrael. Now, it's helpful to see it inside, so let's look in the page of Maamar, page 2. It's the Mishnah in Ksubas daf kuf yud beis. Hakol ma'alin l'Eretz Yisrael v'ein hakol moitzin. So what this means is that let's say a husband and wife live in Chutz La'aretz, and the husband wants to move to Eretz Yisrael, and his wife doesn't. So they get divorced and they split up. One goes to Eretz Yisrael, one stays. So if the husband wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael, and because of her refusal, he's giving her a get, he doesn't have to give the ksuba, because it's considered her fault. Every time when there's a divorce, there's a ksuba to pay. There's money that the Baal promised to pay his wife. And now that it depends on whether it's his fault or her fault. If it's her fault, the divorce, then he doesn't have to pay. If it's his fault, then he has to pay. So this is how Chazal explain. This is how they brought in the din of going to Eretz Yisrael into this din, because if going to Eretz Yisrael is the right thing to do, it's a good thing to do. So if the husband is the one who wants to do that thing, he doesn't have to pay the ksuba. And the same thing the other way around. If the wife wants to go to Eretz Yisrael and the husband refuses to go with her, and he stays behind, gives her a get, then he doesn't. Then he does pay her the ksuba. She goes and he gives her the ksuba. So that's the meaning of this Mishnah. Kol malin ve'ein hakol moitzin is the other way around. Let's say they live in Eretz Yisrael and one of them wants to leave. The one who wants to leave is considered in the wrong in the divorce, and that party has to lose the money. Okay, and it says Hakol ma'alin Yerushalayim ve'ein hakol moitzin. Even in Yerushalayim there's such a din that you can force the other person to go there to Yerushalayim. Echad ha'anashim ve'echad ha'anashim. Both men and women could force, both husband and wife could force the other one to go. Okay, so the Rebbe's question is going to be that how does Rabbi Yehuda fit with this din? Obviously, Rabbi Yehuda holds that you're not even allowed to go there to Israel. So let alone that it's a mitzvah to go. So what's going on over here? How could an Amoira be cholik on a Mishnah? And the Rif asked the kasha also. The Rabbi Yoshua Pinto asked the kasha. So let's see inside. V'hinei harif, but the Rif asked it a little different. He's going to bring harif be'ein Yaakov niskasha al hach memra de Rabbi Yehuda she'oiser la'alois mibavel eretz Yisrael. The Rif asks on the member that it's not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara says that anybody who lives in Chutz La'aretz is like someone who has no God. There's a member a little bit higher up on the page. I didn't highlight it, but it's on Daf Kuf Yud Beis. So Chazal are pretty strong about not living in Chutz La'aretz. It sounds like you really have to live in Eretz Yisrael. So how could Rabbi Yehuda say not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael? How could it be Hashem told the Yidden to stay Davka in Babel? The Rif answers, the Shani Hasam Kivan Shiyatsu Shalom Daitam Vihigla Oisam LeBabel V'Gazar Alehem Shama Yiyu. That in other words, the thing about that if you go to Chutz La'aretz is if you have no God, that's talking if you decide to go on your own. But if Hashem brings the Babylonians and they schlepped the Yidden into Galus and it's not their fault, then that's not the Isser. This that it says that live in Chutz La'aretz is like have no God, according to one girsa, it's if you serve Avodah Zarah. That's talking when a person leaves on his own. In Sham, that's what the Rif answers. But again, the Rif doesn't answer the Rebbe's question, which he's about to ask now. Ula halon nedaber oid bazeh. We're going to speak about this memra, about one who has no God, later on. Omnam yoiser kasha lichoyer mistam masdisin shalom rakol ma'im l'Eretz Yisrael. That it's more shver, it's more difficult to understand Rabbi Yehuda from the Mishnah that says a husband and wife could force each other to go to Eretz Yisrael. Why does the Rifa only ask Rak mehach memra de hadar b'chutz la'aretz kivo oived avodah zara she'eino el brisa? Why does he ask from a brisa on Rabbi Yehuda when he could have asked from the Mishnah? You can't say the Rif's teretz on the Mishnah, because the Mishnah is not talking about someone who leaves on purpose to chutz la'aretz. Shahari amru hakol ma'alim. The Mishnah says you can force the other spouse to go up, meaning that you lived in chutz la'aretz for whatever reason, and you decide to go to Eretz Yisrael, and that's considered such a mitzvah that you can even force the other person. Talking about someone living in chutz la'aretz. The Brisa says beferish that it means that she wants to go up and he doesn't want to go up. So that's clear what it means. Okay, so now we have a few kashas already on the table, and now he's going to bring down the haflah that takes care of this last kasha. And it's important to, besides the fact that it fits into the Vayoel Moshe's shtickle here, but the haflah is very important to understand, because there have been people who made a mistake about this haflah, and I have a copy over here on page 11. One of the people who made a mistake about this haflah. This is a Zionist book. It's called Shalosh Yalu B'Choima. It's by Rabbi Shlomo Aviner, and he brings I think 13 ways to dray out of the Shalosh Shevuos. And this is number 5. I've highlighted Hachoima Rak Misaviv Bavel Hi. That the wall is only around Bavel. Basically, he says that the whole Isra of the Shalosh Shevuos is only to leave Bavel, but anywhere else in the world you could leave. So, before I go back to what he says, let's just see. I want to understand why we have to learn this, because we have to know Damasha Tashiv. People out in the street who are saying these things, so you have to know the Emes Pshat. So let's see inside. The haflah is going to ask this kasha, how does Rabbi Yehuda stem with the Mishnah? And the haflah is going to say that Rabbi Yehuda is only talking about Baba. I saw that the haflah asked this kasha. The cost of the vadei lo yachlik Rabbi Yehuda al stam masnisin. Rabbi Yehuda won't disagree with the Mishnah that Kutani Akol Ma'alim Eretz Yisrael, that he says that husband and wife could force each other. This v'tiritz shehu mefarish hach masnisin demayir mishar aratzos chutz mi bavel. That he explains the Mishnah is talking about other countries besides Bavel. There you could force the spouse to go up, and there it's a mitzvah to go up. Ukefirish Rashi b'reish gittin. Right, he brings down a Rashi and Gittin. Hamevi get mi medinas hayam. The Rashi says the hainu lebar mi Bavel. The Rashi says over there the whole chutz la'aretz is called medinas hayam except for Bavel, because the din is that Bavel, bringing a get from Bavel is not so pasha. It's not the same din as bringing from a different place. Even though it says medinas hayam, it means except for Bavel. So here also the haflah wants to say that even though Rabbi Yehuda said anyone who goes up to Eretz Yisrael, he means only from Bavel. And just to explain it more what the haflah means, take a look in the Gemara on page 3 of the Maamar Koines. I have highlighted a little bit further down the page after the Shalosh Shevuos. There's a member of Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel Kashem Sha'aser Lates Me'eretz Yisrael LeBavel. Just like you're not allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael and go to Bavel. Kach Aser Lates Mi Bavel L'Shar Ratzos. If you live in Bavel, you're not allowed to leave there and go to other countries. Because Rashi says because there are yeshivas in Bavel. It's a very good place for a yid to live. There's a lot of Torah there, so you're not allowed to leave Bavel. So basically the haflah is putting this memra of Rabbi Yehuda together with the first memra. He's saying that Rabbi Yehuda really meant that when he said on Daf Kuf Yudam Beis in the first memra, Kol ha'olam in Bavel Eretz Yisrael everybody say, it's sort of the same idea. It's not a vort in Eretz Yisrael. It's not a din that you're not allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael. It's a din that you can't leave Bavel. Bavel is the main point here, not Eretz Yisrael. That's basically what the haflah does. Okay, so now the Rebbe is going to ask on this haflah, and I have the haflah by the way copied in here, but we don't have to see it inside right now. It's on page 12 of the sheets. So the Rabbi is going to ask on the flaw that his raya from Gittin is not a raya, and he's going to ask other kashas on him. So the kasha li al dvarav zal. I have a kasha on his words. Shahari adrava misham raya she'ein lefarish kan hachi. From Gittin you could prove that you can't explain that way here, because Shahari Pirish b'tois v'sham daf beis amad aleph dibur maslam nina sayam v'zel l'shaynai. Tois v'sin Gittin says hardly knock that maybe get me chutz la'arts. Why does the Mishnah pick a word Medina Sayyam, not Chutz La'arts? Because the Ketanim in Gemara, like the Gemara says other places, Mishum de Chutz La'arts have a mashma kol Chutz La'arts afilu rekem v'chagar. That there's a machlokes in Gittin there. Daf Beis, the Tanakama says that someone who brings a get from close by cities, right outside the borders of Eretz Yisrael, doesn't have to verify that the get was signed in front of him and written in front of him. And then the Rabbi Gamliel says no, even if you bring a get from those places, you have to also say it. So the Tanakama, the first time of the Mishnah Gittin, the reason why he says Medina Sayyam, Tosfos says, is because he wants to say far away places. Medina Sayyam sounds like overseas, far away. V'hachi nachat Medina Sayyam the mashma rachlik. It's mashma far away. K'moy ho'isha shahalach ba'al Medina Sayyam. A man went away to Medina Sayyam and now he's lost. The point is, it's a faraway place. It's a place where you can't find the man. That Rabbi Gamliel disagrees, but the Tanakama holds that those places are like Eretz Yisrael. Ad kan. That's only when the Mishnah says Medina Sayyam. But in general, when it says the lashon of Chutz La'aretz, it means every place in Chutz La'aretz. Kol Medina shehem Chutz La'aretz b'chlal. You can't even exclude places that are right over the border. And Kal v'chomer, you can't exclude Babel from that. The Tosfos didn't speak about Babel because he was speaking about the Mishnah there, which speaks about Rekem v'chager. Gam hu samuch yoser l'Eretz Yisrael, and also it's closer than Babel. It's an even bigger chiddush. That even that's not excluded from Chutz La'aretz. Chutz La'aretz includes every place, even over the border. For Rashi hevi Babel, Rashi mentions Babel there. Shalmu came b'gemara la'alacha afaliba the Tanakama. That even the Tanakama will agree that from Babel you would have to say b'fani neftam or not, according to machlokes daf vav and alf. Even Babel is pretty close to Eretz Yisrael, so it's not really included in Medina Sayyam, but it is included in Chutz La'aretz. That's only in Medina Sayyam. The mashma Medinos rechoikus, far away places, below Kroivus, not close. That's why the Mishnah went out of its way to say Medina Sayyam. Here, where the Mishnah says Eretz Yisrael and in Ksubas, Hakol Malin, Bevadai Hakavana Al Kol Chutz La'aretz, it means every place in Chutz La'aretz, even Babel. The Ein Afkamina Bein Rachel L'Karov, makes no difference if you're close or far. The Masha Ein Eretz Yisrael, Bevadai Nikra Chutz La'aretz Afshu Karov. Even a close by place, if it's not Eretz Yisrael, it's Chutz La'aretz. Alright, so that's his first question on that flaw, that you can't say that that Chutz La'aretz excludes Babel. Uva Emes, now he's going to ask now another kasha from the sugya over here. For that we have to look at inside the Maamar page 2. It's on the beginning of the Gemara here. Right after the Mishnah of Hakol Mailin, the Gemara starts, Hakol Mailin la suye mai. What does Hakol Mailin come to include? La suye avadim, to include slaves. According to the one who says avadim explicitly in the text of the Mishnah, what's it coming to include? That you can even move from a nice house in Chutz La'aretz to a low quality house in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so on this, the Rabbi is going to say that basically if Rav Zera and Rabbi Yehuda are disagreeing about Babel, that Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's not allowed to go from Babel, and Rabbi Zera is saying that it's even allowed to go from Babel, so then the Gemara should have said that that's the La Suye Mai. That's what the Mishnah is coming to include. including Babel. Elamai, it can't be so. Okay, he says, "Ve'emes ilu haya makom lefarish b'zeh sheyesh chiluk bein Babel l'shar chutz la'aretz." If we could have learned that there is a difference between Babel and the other places, then imkein aliba zerib zera shechoylik al Rabbi Yehuda. That he's choylik, he holds that you could go up from Babel to Eretz Yisrael. V'soy v'shach Babel b'chlal. We could answer the Gemara's question that what's Hakol coming to include? The Baal Asui Babel is coming to include Babel. We wouldn't be able to say this teretz that the Gemara says that it's coming to include from a good house to a bad house. Because maybe not, maybe you can't force your wife to move into a bad house. But according to me, the Rabbi says, I hold that there is no difference between Babel and Chutz La'aretz and other places in Chutz La'aretz. So then, that's why the Gemara had to explain Hakol, that it's coming to include something else. Basically, at the end of Siman Aleph, we're left with a question that how does Rabbi Yehuda fit with the Mishnah of Hakol Mali?
Wait, what's the proof that Medinas Hayam also comes to include all of Chutz La'aretz?
Not Medinas Hayam. The Medinas Hayam includes some places in Chutz La'aretz, the faraway ones, right?
Yeah.
And then you want to get, and that's what Rashi and Tosfos say. That Tosfos says that borderline cities are not included in Medinas Hayam, right?
Uh-huh.
But the Rebbe's point is that Chutz La'aretz is not like Medinas Hayam. Chutz La'aretz is a lashon that's very inclusive, of including every place in Medinas Hayam. Alright? Okay, so any more questions before we go on?
No, that's all.
Okay.